Good evening and welcome to the December 10th APW committee meeting. We have a quorum. I'm going to start with the approval of minutes of regular meeting of November 12, 2018.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The consent agenda. A1, payroll, October 29th, 2018 through November 11, 2018, $2,965,372.47. Payroll, November 12, 2018 through November 25th, 2018, in the amount of $2,874,863.60. Bills list, November 27, 2018, in the amount of $3,921,011.32. Bills list, December 11, 2018, in the amount of $23,336,386.14. It's for action. A2, purchase of insurance. Staff recommends approval to purchase the outline policies at a total cost of $556,524. The policies will renew all insurance coverage for the City of Evanston for fiscal year 2019. Both insurance brokers are in the third year of a 3-year contract award to place insurance coverages. Premium quotations received reflected the tightening of insurance markets across all sectors. There was a slight increase in cumulative total pricing for all policies by $680, which excludes the workers' compensation and the new policy for environmental liability. Funding will be from the following funds: insurance fund account in the amount of $525,000 is for action. A3. Staff recommends the City Council review and place a 2018 post-bond issuance report on files for action to accept and be placed on file. A6, staff recommends City Council authorize the City Manager to execute a purchase order in response to bid 1858 to award the 2019-21 uniform contract to Silkscreen Express for a term of 3 years with a not-to-exceed amount of $187,500. Funding for the 2019 will be from Public Works Agency Clothing Fund. This is for action. A7, staff recommends City Council authorize the City Manager to execute an agreement for the emergency purchase of equipment and services to install Kid Funwell 1230 Clean Agent Fire Suppressant System at 2020 Asbury Service Center. Data room with Phoenix Fire Construction in the amount of $34,945. This is for action. A8, staff recommends City Council authorize a sole source purchase of 3 Dell PowerEdge servers, 2 EMC storage area network appliances, and additional related equipment for Dell Technologies in the amount of $141,173.44. This purchase enables IT to replace failing infrastructure in the city's data center that support critical city services. Funding is provided by a capital improvement fund in the amount of $50,000 in 2018 general obligation bonds and $91,173 from the 2019 capital improvement fund using funding approved in the fiscal year 2019 adopted budgets for action. A9, staff recommends City Council authorize the City Manager to execute a 3-year single source service agreement for the building automation services with Snyder Electric in the amount of $36,167 for fiscal year 2019, $37,005 for 2020, and $37,000 $1,869 for 2021 to cover hardware, software, and service visits for HVAC services in 16 city buildings and property. Initially in 2019, this is about 27% increase from 2018 due to the addition of coverage for 8 more locations. In following years 2020 and 21, this is less than 3% increase each year. Funding will be from Facilities Fund. A11, staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 111R18, authorizing the city manager to negotiate the lease of office space with Evanston Development Corporation at the rate of $324.50 per month for 12 months beginning January 2nd, 2019 for 275 square feet of space on the 3rd floor of the Civic Center, Suite 3601.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
I'm supporting this, but I have some questions about it, so maybe you could take it off the...
Okay, I'll remove that. Excuse me. A12, staff recommends City Council approval of Resolution 107R18, authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement for an 8-month renewal lease with Mudlark Theater for space at Noise. The monthly rental rate is $3,183.62, which includes a 2% increase for 2018 rates. A13, and that's for action. A12 is for action. A13, staff recommends City Council approval of Resolution 108R18, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for a 9-month renewal lease with Evanston's Children Choir for studio space at Noise. The monthly rent is $1,362.92, which is also a 2% increase. It's for action. A14, staff recommends City Council approval of Resolution 106R18, authorizing city manager to enter into 22 renewal agreements for 12-month lease for the artist leases for studios at the Noise Center. Fees include a 2% rental rate increase from 2018. It's for action. A16, staff recommends City Council adopt Resolution 109R18, authorizing the city manager to execute an easement agreement with the property owner at 324 Dempster Street for a 2.5-foot wide by 75 feet long easement in the alley adjacent to property. The easement would be granted for a 50-year period for action. A17, I'm going to read it and then bring them up. A17, staff recommends that City Council adoption of Ordinance 121-018, directing the city manager to donate an ambulance owned by the city to the North Regional Major Crimes Task Force Major Crash Assistance Team. This vehicle has been determined to be surplus as a result of a new vehicle replacement being put into service. This is for introduction. And we have a public comment. Mr. James Engelman.
Hello, I'm James Ingram from the 5th Ward, 24 Brown. Please accept that, donate that ambulance to the task force. I think it's going to be very useful for them. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It's for introduction. A22, local Liquor Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 156-018, amending Class D liquor license from 51 to 52 for Fortune Cookie Group Incorporated, doing business as, okay. Could you say it? Lao Szechuan. Thank you. At 1633 Orrington Avenue. Alderman Fisk is requesting suspension of the rules for introduction and action at our City Council meeting today. It's for introduction and action. A23, local liquor commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 157-018, amending Class H liquor license from 1 to 2 for Collectivo Coffee Roasters, doing business as Collectivo Coffee at 716 Church Street. Alderman Fisk is requesting suspension of the rules and introduction and action at our City Council meeting. That is the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion passes. Oh, yes, sorry about that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So, Alderman Rainey, A11.
Resolution 11R18 authorizes I'm sorry, my thing was not. Being requested to authorize the city manager to negotiate the lease for office space with Evanston Development Cooperative at the rate of $324.50 per month for 12 months beginning January 2 for 275 square feet of space on the third floor of the Civic Center, Suite 3601. I move approval.
Second.
All right. What I'd like to comment on is it seems that most of our rentals for outside users, it's either in the lower level or on the first floor. And I mean, the more you read these days, the more concerned I get. And when I'm at City Hall, I see doors that are shut to the public. And I'm just wondering if it's a good security move to put an outside organization on the third floor.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Erica Storley, Assistant City Manager. I think we have many challenges with the building that we're currently in with regards to security. We've done many security surveys over the years with the police department, and there are many recommendations that have been brought forward that we've some implemented when we have had funding and some that have not yet been implemented due to funding issues. So there is obviously a concern with having tenants on floors other than the first or second ground floor, but there wouldn't be any other concern other than, I wouldn't say that there would be a greater concern than what presently exists for the other tenants that rent any other space in the building.
So if this organization decides to meet with people on Sundays or in the evenings or when there's nothing else going on at the Civic Center, people would be free to walk around the building. If they get lost, they might. I'm just suggesting opportunities shouldn't be provided when we don't have to provide them, and that by that I mean access. And so I'm concerned about that.
It's a concern that we share, and when we talk with potential tenants about leasing space in this building, we give them a broad overview of the constraints that come along with leasing the space. That is why the rent is what it is, because you cannot access the building on Sundays, and so if you rent the space, you will not access the building on Sundays, and people have to accept that or look other places. As for nighttime, I mean, most of the tenants that we allow have a primary daytime presence and limited off hours so that we don't have the issues that you've described. I would say in this instance, my discussions with the tenant, the night use was limited and not outside of what I would consider to be standard office hours.
Well, it seems like a great tenant, and I very much support their work. I hope it works out.
Thank you, but concerns duly noted, and we'll continue to work on them. Thank you.
Any further discussion? It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So, excuse me. A4, staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract for Chandler HVAC Improvements Phase 2 project with Amber Mechanical Contractors in the amount of $362,000. This project will be funded from the Capital Improvement Fund, which has an available budget of $565,000 for this project. A further breakdown of funding can be found on the corresponding transmittal memorandum.
Second.
Did you have? Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to raise to the committee, when I see contracts like this, and I think of all the local contractors like Cahill, probably is one of the larger. I always ask, are we making all attempts to reach out to our local folks first, Dave? Or is this specialized that we don't have anyone local who can manage a job this size? Yeah.
Do we have an answer?
Director Stoneback is,
What
And
page are you? I see
thank you,
Laura.
Alderman Braithwaite, for continuing to bring this to the attention as a priority. We have a lot of talent here and skilled tradespeople, and it's important that we seek them first. So can you give us any feedback?
Sure. My name is Laura Biggs. I'm city engineer. Members of the committee, it is our standard practice to always reach out to local Evanston as well as women and minority contractors whenever we release a public bid. We send the notice of bidding directly to them via email. They often do not elect to bid. I have heard different anecdotal stories as to why they choose that are often related to things like insurance and bonding requirements. I'm not exactly sure why in this case Evanston Business did not choose to put in a bid on this project.
Thank you. Director Stoneback, did you have something to add?
There's a list of over 90 firms. Actually, there's 100 firms that we reached out to, and only one was an Evanston firm, G.A. Johnson.
Yep.
Cahill, though, is not
Okay.
doing business anymore.
Okay.
They're not doing mechanical?
I didn't know that. Okay.
Thank you. Did we get a motion for that?
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. A5, Alderman Braithwaite.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move A5 contract with Landmark Contractors, Inc. for Sherman Avenue improvements in the dollar amount of $825,071.84.
Second. Any Alderman Fleming.
Yes. I don't know if I have a question per se, but I do have a concern being that this was originally taken out and the memo says because of budget limitations. And we all know now that we're on the backside of the Fountain Square project that it went over budget. So I won't object to this, but I did just want to personally, I guess, voice a little bit of frustration that we didn't do this at the time because we were concerned about the budget, and we since have gone over the budget. And now with this additional $900,000, we need to be mindful about our spending and, I guess, project management is my statement.
Can I speak?
Director Stoneback.
Good evening, Dave Stoneback, Public Works Agency Director. When we first looked at the concept of Fountain Square, there was actually 3 individual areas that we were proposing to improve. It was when we awarded the initial contract that the TIF fund did not appear to have appropriate funding to do more than the main project. As the TIF area is closing and audits conducted on the TIF, there is additional funding left in the fund to be able to afford this project. So it's not tied to like the city's budget because this is coming from the TIF and solely from the TIF. The first project did go over. There were change orders on it, but with the liquidated damages and the actual work completed, this project will actually close significantly below the original bid price. The current project that's wrapping up right now, and that's also helping to have funds available for this second phase of the Fountain Square area.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? A10, Alderman Fleming.
A10, staff recommends that City Council authorize City Manager to extend the contract for the management and operations of 3 city-owned self-park facilities to SP Plus Municipal Services in Chicago in the amount of $1,530,198 for 2019 with no additional extensions. This was released in RFP 15-65 for introduction, for action, excuse me.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? A15, we have public comment. I'm going to move the motion first. Staff recommends City Council approve of Resolution 110R18, authorizing city manager to amend the purchase and sell agreement for the city-owned real property located at 171420 Chicago Avenue to Chicago Avenue Partners, LLC. The first amendment to the contract executed in July 2018 established an approval period which expires at 5 p.m. Central Time on December 12, 2018. And we have, it's for action.
Second.
Thank you. We have Jack Weiss. Yes.
Good evening, Jack Weiss, 50-year resident of Evanston, former president of Design Evanston, currently a board member, former member of the Preservation Commission. Speaking on behalf of the Board of Design Evanston, I urge you to deny the request by Chicago Avenue Partners to extend by 6 months the approval period for the purchase agreement on the property. This is the second request by the developer to extend the approval period. It's clear to us that the developer is struggling to meet his financial, design, and zoning issues for the proposed building. As you all know, DAPR unanimously rejected this project. We further recommend that the city revise and reissue the RFP for the sale of this property to specify residential use instead of the current commercial use. This property is zoned residential and should remain so, especially for that completely residential block of Chicago Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet Steidel.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm here to speak to A15 about the second extension of 6 months for the developer of the library parking lot. I've been following this project very closely for a long time. I know a lot about it. And I really feel that this second extension should not be granted, and here's why. The city entered into a sales agreement that had very clear requirements, a building height of 11 stories and the replacement of 75 public parking spaces plus the minimum required by zoning. That's 286 spaces in all. The building that's scheduled to go before Plan Commission on Wednesday is not 11 stories, it's 13. It does not have 286 parking spaces, it has 112. And there are not 75 public parking spaces, there are only 21. The difference in these numbers is significant. It is improbable that a second 6-month extension would see 13 stories reduced to 11 and 112 parking spaces stretched to 286 when the first extension didn't yield those changes. If the developers had been able to meet the contract requirements, they would have done so by now. Therefore, the second extension should be denied. A unanimous no vote from DAPR in November only strengthens the rationale for no vote here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our last public comment on this agenda item is Doreen Price.
Greetings to everyone on the council. I wrote these things down, so hopefully they make sense instead of and being more directed for your benefit. With regard to the 222 Oakton, I'm thinking that the rush is not warranted on the basis of some things being not follow through enough to allow public comment, or some decisions that might be better, put things to better use, considering we have an outside contractor of no, or an outside owner that has no, is part of a national organization, and from my interactions with them asking about their marketing plan, such as the Evanston Athletic Center was not acknowledged, so I don't think they did a deep enough marketing plan that most people would, from a business standpoint, object to. That was not objected to. In terms of the amount that we were going to get for it from the city, I think selling land right now when we have affordable housing needs is not very wise, because there's not enough affordable housing. We're not going to be able to meet plan, and we can prevent that if we start looking at local people, whether it's local businesses, which I saw the last meeting where that was a real big item, and we want to do economic development. But you can do people development if you have businesses that support people, like Peckish Pig, or like the nonprofits, which were initially excluded, and now that we know that we have such a great need, nonprofits are supplying some of the things we can't afford. So I'm saying it's not prudent in terms of uses of public funds to go the route of supporting an investor that is outside. He's not even the business. All he is doing is lending land to something people don't know about. It's called a rock climbing wall. I think that's exclusive. Peckish Pig is inclusive, and I think that those considerations far outweigh and need to be vetted, if at all, to make a wise decision from the council in terms of affording all residents opportunities, and especially supporting local businesses and local residents. I don't think this is as inclusive as it could be. Delaying this decision right now would be a real benefit to inciting trust, or what we saw, inspiring trust in the city in terms of rushing things, because in the past that's happened. This meeting, in terms of seeing what's going on, is not clear. This is related to a rock climbing wall, because it's not stated in here. People who are not following this don't know that. And we got this notice in the afternoon on a Friday, and we're told it's 48 hours. Well, if you don't count the weekend, it's 24 plus, 3 hours? So 27 hours. I think I made something of a positive statement for the council to consider every other week. That way you guys can get things done, and we have a little time to read. People are not rushed into trying to think of things, and I think it excludes a lot of people who have families or whatever, and you ask why people don't come. If you don't have time to think about things, and you want to have time to think about things, I can't even do it, and I have some time. So it's really hard to think that you're not excluding people and that you have some control over it, which means you can change that. And I don't see anything that says, from the city's standpoint, that doing a meeting every other week would be to anybody's disadvantage. It would be to everyone's advantage, since the city council itself complains about getting hit with things right away.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion?
We're on 1714 Chicago Avenue.
Right.
Correct.
Yes, we are on 1714-20 Chicago Avenue. Is there any discussion? Alderman Rainey?
Well, I'm going to support this because I want to hear from other members of the council. I know at least the alderman of the ward probably will have something to say, so I'm going to support this to get it to the council.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. A18, Alderman Rainey. We have a public comment on this.
Okay.
You
want
okay
me
if
to
we do that
introduce
first?
it? Do you
Go
want me to
ahead.
just
Go
introduce
ahead.
it? Okay. All right, here we are. This is staff's recommendation, city manager's recommendation, that we approve ordinance 122-018, which authorizes the manager to negotiate a redevelopment agreement and the sale of city property at 2222 Oakton Street to Clark Real Estate, LLC. There's a recommendation here that this be introduced, suspension of the rules, and action tonight. So I'm going to move introduction, and if you'll let me speak.
Alderman Rainey, yes.
Second.
So I'm going to move introduction. Just let me say a few words, if you don't mind.
Second, so you can
All right, all right. First of all, I'm having a board meeting on January 9 to discuss this project. It will not look good if the council approves this tonight, and then we have a board meeting. So I will not be supporting the suspension of the rules. And for those of you who are concerned about Peckish Pig, that ship has sailed. I believe they're making other plans in the city of Chicago. So there are other issues with this project, but Peckish Pig is not the reason to delay this. Information for the community is a reason to delay it. So I'm going to move introduction and ask that the council, well, I'm not going to support suspension of the rules. So I'd love to hear what other people have to say.
I support introduction. Is there any other comment?
None?
You said there was citizen comment.
There is, yes. Janad.
I've been following this, property for a while because I'm been concerned. There's been many kind of ideas for this, but this property is contiguous to a park, and it's basically contiguous to the animal shelter. City uses it for storage, and someone will say, well, that's not the best use. Well, Mr. Stonebeck needs to come up with a number of how much it costs to store all this stuff somewhere else. And he hasn't probably done that. And the issues to me, $1 million, $800,000 for that building. That building was built for $4 million. So we're selling it for $1 million. We have a budget crisis, but we keep on giving our assets away. And that's a serious problem to me, to give assets away to people and pretend we're getting something of value back because they're developing and doing something. Well, it's all for their benefit. It doesn't benefit the taxpayers. Oh, yes, there's an increment, but as some of you recall, the Economic Development Department didn't even put the property on the tax rolls and screw that up. But the last people that were in there, we all know that. So the real issue to me is, fiscal prudence here is to basically either get a lot more money for that or not sell it and keep it. Because, just pretending we have budget crisis, we're going to sell these assets for pennies on the dollar. Someone pointed out to me the legal bills for James Park in one month, we've paid close to $1 million in legal fees. So, you're going to sell this asset off, and then, we have this mess at James Park we're paying all this money for. It's just not acceptable to be doing this with our assets. And Mr. Bobkowitz putting it on the agenda tonight to sneak it through when he knows there's all these other things going on with Harley Clark is typical of what he does. He overloads the agenda to 1,000 pages. And that's not acceptable to the public. So nobody's looking for all this stuff, and he's passing it through. It's unacceptable. Okay, and that's what I have to say on this. I will make one or two other very minor comments. Mr. Stonebeck is stating that, we're holding retainage, or basically not giving the contractor money on Fountain Square, and that's why we have money. Well, we may be sued because another contractor already did this when we did this retainage deal. This is not done, and it could cost the city money in legal fees. And that's not acceptable. The money should be held back from this and for the legal problems, because as we all know, we're at $6.5 million at James Park, and you basically don't have the money. You're basically going to raise property taxes for all these legal problems.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Rainey, is this old light or?
It's an old.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Introducing?
I'm sorry, all in favor of introduction only?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It moves for introduction only. A19, Alderman Sufferton.
A19 is an ordinance amending the City Code Section 3-4-6E to allow the sale of alcoholic liquor greater than 6.76 fluid ounces and wine greater than 6.32 fluid ounces. The mayor has requested the suspension of the rules for introduction and action.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Oh, there's a light.
Wait. Oh, sorry, Alderman Fleming.
That's okay. I just have a quick question because obviously we're going to do all three of these. What goal are we trying to accomplish here? They just look all the same to me, and I assume we're trying to level the playing field, but if someone could just explain to me, if someone here from the Liquor Commission.
Is there someone here to respond to that?
I had my light on.
Alderman Rainey.
I was at the liquor
Okay,
commission.
Alderman Rainey, thank you.
I thank you, Madam Chair. Alderman Fleming, I attended the Liquor Commission hearing where this issue came up, and there were several liquor license holders that were present. As a matter of fact, not of concern was this one, but there was an argument that given Binny's ability to sell just about any size of liquor in containers, including single cans of beer and airplane size spirits, that these other concerns that came, including Evanston First, D&D Foods, et cetera, were very concerned that they were not able to compete with that kind of issue. And later on, I went with another alderman to Binny's, and while it was argued that they were only selling craft beer in single cans, we saw $1.79 can, I think of Miller Lite or something, but so we're not considering Miller Lite craft beer, I don't think, but they were selling it individual cans. They were little larger cans. They weren't the kind in a little six-pack, but they were still selling individual cans. So it seemed to the liquor commissioner and to the other members of the commission, of which I am not part of, that it was true, that this was unfair. Okay. So, but I think you haven't heard the end of the story yet on the issue of the small bottles. This is not addressing that. But I think the mayor is going to deal with that.
Yeah.
Alderman Braithwaite?
I was just going to translate for you. So there used to be a time in town where there was a concern that we couldn't sell 40 ounces in the small little bottles because that would bring around elements to the places of business. So we just outruled it. So when Binny's came in, they flipped that upside down because now they can sell the single cans and the other smaller businesses cannot. So the changes are looking to remedy that, and the thought is, should there be a concern or should it change the elements of people circling around, then we'll have to address it in another way.
However, not being an expert in craft beer, although it is tasty, we did see a bottle of, and this was explained to us by the fellow from the coffee place, who said that all this stuff is very expensive, and there was a bottle of craft beer that was less than a quart for $36 at Binny's. It's just information.
All right, thank you. That answered my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we get a motion on that and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It moves for introduction and action. A20, Liquor License Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 154-018, amending City Code Section 346 to allow sale of alcoholic liquor greater than 6.76 fluid ounces and wine greater than 6.32 fluid ounces. Mayor Haggerty requests suspension of the rules for introduction and action at our City Council meeting. It's for introduction and action.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes for introduction and action. A21, Alderman Braithwaite.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move item A21 for introduction and action. It's ordinance 155-0-18, amending the City Code Section 3-4-30 to allow for the sale of wine greater than 6.2 fluid ounces.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? A21 moves for introduction and action. A24, Alderman Fleming.
A24 is ordinance 161-0-18, amending City Code Section 10-11-18 and Section 10-11-22, resident parking only districts. The Transportation and Parking Committee and the staff recommend we adopt this ordinance, amending the city code for residential parking only districts for for District S to become EVS District 3, with a review of the changes after 6 months to be presented to the Parking and Transportation Committee in the second half of 2019. This is for introduction.
Second.
We have a public comment. James Larson.
Thank you for just a few moments. I'm a longtime resident of Evanston. My wife and I have been in the community for over 40 years, and so I've seen a lot of changes in the city as well as in the 6th Ward where we've lived most of that time. And what we're addressing here is a restricted parking area on a residential street that seems to exclude many of the people in our community. So I am in favor of changing that restriction so that it makes the community and our parking, our compromised parking, a little more accessible to the people in our area. So I'm hoping that this moves forward and is received well and passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? A24 moves for introduction. A25, Alderman Rainey.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. A25 is Ordinance 150-018, which amends Section 923B of the City of Evanston Code, increasing fire department transport fees. I move approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have one public comment. We have Mr. James Engelman. Hey, James.
Hi. I saw this one last time, so I am hoping that you guys agree with this because a lot of people use fire the ambulances, and so you guys could increase the fee for transportation. Because I hear fire department ambulances all night long, so thank you very much.
Thank you, James. And so this was discussed with some concern at our November 12th APW meeting, concern for fees for low-income residents, and there has been some language included in the ordinance, and I'll read it verbatim. The city manager may waive or reduce the fees charged in Section 923 if the individual demonstrates financial hardship. Waiver or reduction in fees shall not create a precedent and performed at his or her sole discretion. Is there any further discussion on this?
Thank you for the clarification.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A25 passes. Are there any items for discussion? Alderman Braithwaite.
Yes, Madam Chair. If the members of the committee could just check their email, and I want to be conscious of the time. Hitesh, do you have a moment? I shared that I wanted to raise an issue or a concern. So over the past 3 or 4 years, myself, Alderman Simmons, we serve on the MWEB committee. We have, over the years, and you've all received the reports in the city manager's report that comes out on a monthly basis. I think we've done an excellent job of working with our contractors and staff in terms of compliance. Over the past 3 years, our compliance have increased. Meanwhile, the fees that we're levying have gone down. And so when we first made the change for the ordinance for those that are new, moving from $100 a day to 1%, there was a lot of concern from our staff, from our city manager, that somehow this was going to have a negative impact in terms of the folks who would bid on future jobs. And I think we've seen quite the opposite, that, again, compliancy has gone up, and we've started to increase our fees. So over the past several years, we've received reports that we've had over $85,000 in our fund. And a recent inquiry by myself and Alderman Simmons, we found out that somehow, and I mean, Hitesh, you can speak to this, that dollars were not properly assigned to our account, and we've sort of gone back and forth to sort out some money, but there's still approximately $18,000 that's been missing back in 2013. So again, being conscious of the time, I just wanted to raise that awareness that this conversation is going on. So that's on the front end, and I'm hoping that working with our staff that we'll be able to identify where those dollars are. But currently, in 2013, SAC construction, there's an outstanding violation amount of $2,000. Boulder contract, there's a outstanding balance of $9,000. Chicago paving, $3,400. Eleanor construction, $4,100. And FE Moran, $6,700. So I'm hoping when we have a little bit more time, Chair Simmons, that we'll be able to talk about this, review the policy in depth. Some of the conversations that we've had on a very preliminary basis, and Alderman Simmons took the lead on this, is how do we expand the fund to provide better opportunities for workforce development, apprenticeship training, any type of support to community groups that will help move our residents from working labor to union. And so I don't know if you wanted to make comments now, Hitesh, or come back.
Madam Chair, the members of the committee, good evening. Hitesh Desai, Chief Financial Officer. So we looked at it, and I think I mentioned, Alderman Braithwaite, that we did kind of like internal audit or looked at the numbers, and to sell. So right now, after we reclass some of the amounts, and I think I sent the email to you and Alderman Simmons, the balance in the LEP violation, the penalty account, is around $58,371. The $18,000 you are referring to is the numbers before our ERP system, the New World system. So we don't have the records in our system. So what we are trying to do right now, locate the 2013 invoices to make sure whether the contractor paid that penalty or not. And once we establish those things, we can transfer that $18,000 too, so which will bring the balance to around $75,000. And other $4,100 is the actual expenses out of this LEP penalty.
Thank you. So, as mentioned, it's important that we have a clear procedure. I guess we don't need a policy, but we definitely need to make sure that final payments are not released before fees are collected on this, so that we are maximizing that fund as we are working on that committee to expand opportunities for our residents. Also looking at a possible way to move past the reimbursement fee. That's also been noted as a barrier to accessing that money. So I'm hoping that you'll be working on that. And if you could report to us, to committee is fine. If you could report to committee what that new internal procedure will look like, so that we don't overlook any fees.
Absolutely, you're right. And I've already instructed our accounts payable and the Sharon Johnson, who handles this program, to work with the department who initiates the invoice. If it involves any invoice with the LEP penalty, they can work directly with the accounts payable and the accounting. So we make sure that the LEP account gets the credit for their share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So part of what I'm asking, Madam Chair, and members of the committee, so the way our MWEB committee is structured is that we are a subcommittee to our Economic Development Committee. And so if we make the changes to the ordinance, it's my suggestion to the chair and members of the committee that we bring it here to AP&W versus going through Economic Development. That's just a question that I'm asking. I'm looking at Alderman Rainey. That would be my preference, that we manage everything right here through this committee, reporting the outstanding fees, deciding what to do with the companies that are not compliant right now, meaning they have not paid, and then the possibility of expanding the ordinance. And that will come either from MWEBE and go straight to council, or come to AP&W, depending on when we're able to have that conversation. Does that make sense?
I support that. Alderman Rainey?
No, I think that's exactly the way it should go. However, if it could make a right turn to economic development and make a report before it comes here, because I think there needs to be some nexus between the MWEBE committee and economic development.
Okay.
I mean, they should know how these things work, and we have citizen members of that committee who are not aware of these things. I mean, the sitting council is not aware of this. I was shocked to see
Yeah.
the numbers.
Imagine our surprise.
Yeah.
I agree. So why don't we
So
make,
I'm just asking a report be made to economic
Sure.
development before it comes here so that there can be some conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Any further discussion or items for discussion? Is there any communication? May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.